What a lot of people don't understand is at some point in time during high school, we were the NWO. And we did walk around as a group
Yeah, we
and
would
just
just be running in the
humble.
hallway.
Yeah, we just
Yep.
pummeled people. And I would stun them. I would physically make the Stone Cold Stunner work in real life and piss people off. That- Brian Hamill looking good, my man.
Thank you, baby. Uh-oh. Okay.
Oh no. Oh Lord.
What happened?
We're on a website. Oh my God.
right.
We're on the internet.
You guys are on the official EWA website.
Oh, I see.
Oh Lord.
So I asked Joe to write the history of the EWA, and he did. And we published it. So I even have quotes from one Joe Hollywood Pinto, founder of the EWA here.
I know that guy.
Another guy you may know is the Zeitgeist, former EWA World Heavyweight Champion, much like Hollywood Pinto. And the Zeitgeist is me, Brian here. We have two Brians on board, so let's make it confusing, folks. I am Brian, last name omitted, the Zeitgeist. We also have Brian, also known as Claudio Cacciatore. Again, we have Hollywood Joe Pinto and Big Chris, Christopher Anthony, formerly known as Big Daddy Coots. And basically, what I want to do today is bringing these guys who founded the EWA, are early members of the EWA, and then myself, a later joiner of the EWA, to run through the history of this, what I have referred to often and will several times throughout this podcast, to make sure that everyone knows across the world the longest running backyard wrestling outfit of all time in history throughout the universes and multiverses and galaxies. And today, in your ears, to tell you the great and grand story of its history, its present, and hopefully its future.
Eat up.
And, you know, Joe, Chris, Brian, like, I wasn't there. So I think this will make a fun episode and a kind of a necessary episode for the podcast to say, why the hell are we even doing this?
All
And
right.
we could just keep talking about Dragon Ball Z, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Make a
Because
separate podcast.
maybe that played a factor. I don't know.
So, you want me to start?
Well, I would just say that,
babies.
we are here for another edition of the EWA podcast, and we have some originals among us, not me, but just go around and tell the people who you are.
I am Hollywood Pinto, co-founder of the EWA, along with Blockbuster Dave, Big Daddy Coots, and Road Tour.
Road
That's
tour.
right. Wait, I don't know who that is.
Mm.
His name might as well be Luigi Mangione.
You might-
For the record, too, I come in later, which is why I haven't
a
said
little
anything.
later, yeah.
Maybe 5 years after this, 4.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say we were about 13, 14 on the side of Chris's house. How old
Well,
were we?
I am a younger guy.
Yeah.
Should I introduce myself now? I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
I'm Chris, also known as Christopher Anthony and Big Daddy Coots. Big
Mm.
Daddy Coots. And the very
Not Daddy
first,
Mac, Daddy Coops.
well, actually, technically, Joe, not the first ring on the side of my house, because the first ring.
We're going to tell that story.
I mean, we might as well. We're starting at the beginning, right?
Okay.
Let's do
We're
it.
starting at the beginning.
Yeah.
That I think we actually were like. I think I was 13 and you were 14 or something like that. It
We-
was our friends Bobby and we're not going to say any last names. But Bobby and Perry.
And Perry.
They both lived in a two-family house, and they were friends, and we were friends with them. And we used to hang out, like play basketball and hockey with them or whatever. And just one day, Joe and I think Dave, Blockbuster Dave, as well, we just were like, well, let's just start like bringing 2x4s and plywood into the backyard and just start building.
So
what's the worst that could happen? They say no, and we take it away.
Right. Only went a little far. So rule number 1, don't steal shit from the neighbor that is right there in the next yard. We constructed the frame to a giant ring, which was really heavy, and we did it upside down. And what happened was, I forget how fast this was done. We tried to flip it up, and one of the kids' little sister came outside.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll never fucking forget it. We dropped the frame to the ring, and she walked right underneath it. And if it wasn't for the fact that it just happened to fall through her, and she was standing in one of the spaces where there was no wood, I mean, it really would have hurt her. That would have been a situation.
So we're talking about a group of kids that all went to school together.
Right.
And I'm just gonna, as the outsider here, remind people of the context. So we're talking about the grown-ups you see here that grew up in Harrison, New York.
Well, Joe and I are kind of describing like the primordial soup.
Yeah.
EWA. Like this isn't even like fish with like skeletons and stuff. This is just like a fucking amoeba just floating out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with nothing around it.
That's beautiful, Chris.
And in the beginning,
and you didn't curse once.
Yeah, I did. I just did actually.
The way it
put the curse started for him.
God's fucking guy.
Yes. So I whipped my golden out
against fucking Greg Dust. I'm gonna fucking end it. I'm gonna end it instead of ending it. If you know.
So wait, so you guys, real quick. So it's the 90s, like wrestling is, hot into the late 90s, but like, like backyard wrestling, I don't know, like, was that really a thing at the time? Like, was that something that was already happening? Like, how did you guys actually even like get to doing that? Like, you just liked wrestling and wanted to do it, or was it like you knew of other backyard wrestling things?
The first one.
It was not a thing.
It was not a thing, right?
It was everywhere around the world. This is before those backyard wrestling VHS tapes and shit. And it was the same thing with ICP.
Yeah,
they did that in
the backyard wrestling video game.
But they had their own backyard wrestling federation when they were teenagers.
Yeah,
in their backyard, or in like a train yard or something. Like, and this is the 80s. And then they were actually wrestlers, or at least Violent J did independent wrestling in the early 90s. It might have been even at the same time ICP was first starting to come around. So like, it's just I think it's just a thing. It's just like, I like skateboarding. I'm going to build a ramp in my backyard if I have the room or something, like, we love this shit. Let's build a ring.
Right. Yeah. And remember, these matches in the old EWA, it was weapon. It was all weapons.
Yeah.
It was
There's
what
no
can
interest in actually wrestling.
What can we do?
Yeah.
What can
Let's
we
just
do?
be violent.
What can we hit each other with next? What can we do that'll top the stunt from before?
Yeah.
It was very violent, very physical.
Yeah.
Very dangerous. I think there was a bicycle.
I was just going to reference the bike type 3. Brian and I did that.
Yeah.
That Brian and I, we were like smoking a joint or a blunt there one night. I think with Wesley as well. And there was a bike, and we were just like, "Yo, let's tie this bike to this tree."
Yeah.
And then let's try and ride it and see how far we can get before we get
before the bike comes out.
Yes. And we eventually did work that into a wrestling spot, but that
we did.
The primary purpose for the bike tied to the tree was alternate nonsense outside of wrestling.
At one point, someone was hit with the bike.
Yeah.
Via the rope.
The bike got a lot of action.
Yeah.
How does the bike get from being tied to the tree to getting into the ring and used as a weapon?
It was
So we were
there.
on the outside of the ring, within distance of the bike,
Yeah.
and
It
someone
was.
fucking picked it up and threw it at the person
Nice.
Yeah.
with no plan whatsoever.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, and so you guys have that. It's good to kind of understand the context of the time with backyard wrestling and sort of,
Right, but
I have put into vinyl and print the claim that the EWA is the longest running backyard wrestling company of all time in the
it
world.
is.
So I'm just trying to establish facts here. And
Understand this. There is only 5 or 6 episodes of Tuesday Night Terror
which is under
from
the
that time
PWF.
period.
Yes.
Yeah,
EWF, right?
from that time period, from the early EWA. It's a mix of that and early EWA
Sure.
because it was not organized. We didn't think of it that way. We were just hanging out. It wasn't, oh, we're filming a show. It wasn't what we did later. It was just, this is who we were. We lived it. We just lived that life. We just beat the hell out of each other. That was our relationship with the world. It's hard to explain.
It's great. That's a pretty good explanation. Well,
Like
and
Joe,
like it,
Joe was in. Joe had the wrestling team, obviously. Like I didn't play any sports. I wasn't on like any sport teams. Dave was not on any sports teams. Brian, you were never on like a sports team, right, Brian?
No.
So this was kind of like our sport. Like
It's our beer league
like
softball.
drunk 20-something-year-old bros get together on weekends and play like shitty softball with each other, and
Exactly.
they act like it's fucking game 7 of the World Series, and they're just a bunch of bloated assholes playing softball. Like, so what? That's boring. Hit me with a chair.
Yeah.
Now,
Hey,
understand,
we have a cutting board today. Hit me with.
this spills into our early bar days, and here's the thing. Someone fucks with us when we're out. I mean, what have you done in your life? You punch somebody? I put someone's mouth on a chair and stepped on their fucking head.
That
And that was
was
my
before American History X.
friend. Yeah. And that was my friend. That was my friend. What do you think I'm going to do to you? It became who we were. It molded our personality. I can't put it into words. But anyway, the way it started was I had people coming to my house, knocking on my window, trying to place bets on whether or not I can fight this random kid behind the Presbyterian church down the hill.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and it was
why?
real.
But why why is this happening?
This was the
You're
90s.
13, 14, and people are just coming up trying to fight, like knocking on your window trying to fight you?
I got picked on. I became the bully, and then it became a thing to try to beat me, and it really got out of hand. And it really wasn't on purpose. I just defended myself, but it became a thing, and I was that wrestling kid that wasn't that big, but I can put you down and tap you out. It
Yeah.
just
Oh,
is
so
what it
you
is.
so you took wrestling in school, got some
It was
skills.
before I took wrestling. I hadn't
Okay.
even taken it
Yeah,
yet.
Joe was on the wrestling team. He was very good at it.
Yeah, yeah, early on. Well, anyway, so Blockbuster Dave lived behind me, a couple houses down, and we had met a few times. He came to my house one day. We're playing basketball. He's a wrestling fan. I'm a wrestling fan. The NWO had just started being popular, and he's like, "Look, you got me. We should wrestle. Why don't we go down to my friend's house and I'll introduce you?" And when I met Chris, I mean, I almost feel like we were friends right away. The three of us we're pretty solid together.
Oh,
Like,
Joe, no, our initial like kinship was I got into like an altercation with a certain other person at our school in the hallway. It wasn't really anything. Like it wasn't a fist
Whose
fight.
last name will somehow leak out in
oh,
this conversation?
So
I
it was
remember this.
both guys that were on the wrestling team.
Eminem.
Yes, and
Yeah.
MM and NF. They both, for whatever reason, just confronted me in the hallway. Just were like, "This kid's a loser. Let's just pick on him." And
Were you 6'5" yet?
I wasn't far behind there. I think I was like 6'3" at 15. I'm a ogre. So the both of them like kind of got in my face for whatever reason, and I shoved one of them, and the other one was like, "Hey, yo, you can't do that." So I shoved him too, and then I just kind of walked off. And then the next thing I know, Joe, I think my friend Dave introduces me to Joe, and Joe I think Joe hugged me, and he's just like, "I heard about what happened, brother. Let me tell you something, dude. I got their back." And when I say I got their back, I mean with the steel chair, brother.
That's right.
Did something to that effect.
It's almost like a wrestling storyline.
It is.
Joe completely took it
Joe was the run-in. He just got there too late.
What
that was like
a
the
lot of
backstage
people,
little
yeah.
thing.
What a lot of people don't understand is at some point in time during high school, we were the NWO, and we did walk around as a group.
Yeah, we
and
would just in the hallway.
Yeah, we just
Yep.
pummeled people, and I would stun them. I would physically make the Stone Cold Stunner work in real life and piss people off.
You remember when you and Dave went into the photography class, like mid-match? I think I was in class, and you and Dave just came in like mid-match and just started like, fuck, one of you threw the other one on the table. I can't remember. You might have been there too, Brian.
What's
Table.
his name's class?
Mr. B. Mr. B. He had a very, very hilarious walk.
Yes.
Joe slammed Dave, or Dave slammed Joe on the table, and they both got on the table, and came out. And I never heard this man ever say it. It was this is 25 years ago. It was like teachers didn't curse and use foul language back then. Bro just came out immediately. What the fuck are you assholes doing?
I understand the rage too, because that room was full of expensive shit, most of which he probably paid for himself.
You just say it was photography class?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
He was a nice guy. I didn't do anything in his class. He still passed me because he liked me.
But we had a really big group of people that would just fight all around the school, all around everywhere.
Yep.
And I remember early on with Brian, we would be out in the field just having contests to see who can kick or punch the other person hard enough in the chest for them to say stop. And our chests would be red and swollen, and we wouldn't stop. The shopping carts down the hill, shoving each other. There was a
lot of. That's how, because I probably didn't know you guys maybe until the end of freshman year.
Yeah,
maybe the beginning of sophomore year or something like that. Because I came from Mount Vernon, I knew nobody. I just moved to Harrison a few months prior in the summertime, and I didn't know fucking anybody. So I was like the quiet kid. They called me the Russian because I used to hang out with the Russian exchange students because they were the only people who would talk to me. So they just assumed I was Russian too.
Yeah, Alex and I forget his brother's name.
Yeah, they were cool because they were
super cool. I was in a class with one of them. I used to talk with them all the time. I like them.
Yeah, and then I think they just disappeared. I think they went back to Russia.
They went back. Yeah.
I know the older one. I think was in a band with
Max, right?
Hollywood Joe, but Joe. Yeah, was that Fat Eddie?
He was. Yeah.
That's
he was actually the singer at that time.
I think I got to see him.
And then
at Binghamton.
Just for EWA record, Brian became friends with Sean. Sean was Orange Marmalade early on. And they formed a tag team called Sprinkles and Skittles.
Yes. I think that was the initial.
There was a lot of weed being smoked.
Introduction.
And that we don't have it on video anymore, but it once was. We had the auditorium brawl. Where someone jumped off.
We just randomly started fighting each other at random. we would just see each other in the hallway and kind of just be like,
well, we would have. I remember me and Lopez had a full match at lunchtime, and we ended up on top of a shipping container outside, and then I punched him off the shipping container. I'm sure, in retrospect, he rolled down and then fell off. Yeah. But to us, at like fucking 15 years old, it was like it was sick.
You know, if you guys did this today as kids in high school, this shit would be going viral, and you'd be fucking like child influencers.
We would probably be going viral for getting in trouble.
Yeah, yes. we had a belt
because that's all we did was get in trouble.
We did have a belt float around the school, and everybody was pinning everybody to try to get the belt. Chris D'Annunzio was pile driven through a hole in a mat onto concrete and got a concussion.
Nice.
Yeah.
By the way, Chris D'Annunzio was one of
the mat that conveniently had a hole.
It had a hole right in the middle.
You couldn't tell it was there until you stepped in it or put your head through it.
Yeah. Now, Chris D'Annunzio was one of the few people from high school that we don't normally talk to that messaged me on Facebook and congratulated us for Condiment Wars. So I thought that was nice to him.
Very nice. Well, so it sounds like you guys basically had the hardcore title in your high school, the way WWF had the hardcore title, where you just like pack some.
And that was happening at the time. We were watching that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But needless to say, you're hearing all these stories. We get noticed by the seniors who at the time were completely psychotic and very large.
Right.
Yeah.
And what motivated...
I'm going to guess Italian, too.
Yeah, they had like beards and stuff.
Yeah, they had beards, goatees. Actually,
I haven't shaved.
One of them had a goatee that inspired young Hollywood Pinto to have the goatee.
Wow.
Jack, Wally, Jared Fishman, Tom Mignon, Hardcore Tom, all those people, we wanted them to kind of like accept us in a way, not like outwardly, like, please accept it. They were the older wrestling kids, and we were like, we can do this, you know? So there then came the idea of, let's try the ring thing again, and we can invite them, and we can have a rumble, and we can take over.
Oh, we kind of like this. Now we're advancing to the ring that's on the side of
Chris's house,
which was not a house; it was an apartment.
Right. It was an apartment building. And
the 13 families there.
It was beautifully constructed with anything that 14 or 15-year-old kids can steal in the middle of the night and walk a few blocks over with.
Yes.
And we could not use power tools. So not everything was straight or even or cut. And underneath was a disaster. Probably the biggest injury there was during one of the rumbles with the seniors who did come. Chris got pushed outside the ropes.
Feared.
His legs swung underneath, and he got a nail right in the thigh.
Knee.
Yeah.
Oh.
And we document this in EWA the movie. As Chris goes into great detail about the nail in the knee.
There you go.
My brother officially joins us as, the little kid that we all beat up.
He put the cane on. He was like Baby Kane.
He was like Baby Kane.
He wasn't cocaine. He wasn't blue cane.
This was a completely different Steven that you know now. This was like he was like hyper, what was he, Joe? Like 10 years old?
He was 10. He was hyper and loud and violent and cursed. And
how is that possible? What? Dude, I want to meet this Steven.
Joe, have we I'm sure I think individually we told both Brian and Brian the story, but like now publicly here, Joe's little brother, Steven Pinto. We decided one day we were going to stuff him into a trash can.
Oh yeah,
he fit very, very
nicely in the can.
Very nicely in. He was a small 10-year-old boy, fit right in there. Would have had room for another one of his friends in there too. And he's rattling around. So we stuffed him in there, and we're like, you know what? Let's throw him out of the ring.
Right.
Out of the ring, like over the top rope, bung, bung, bung on the floor. He crawls out, gets out, starts screaming, grabs the can, and starts smashing it over his head.
Yeah.
As you do.
And that's when I realized that we just gave somebody brain damage.
Right.
Right. He did it to himself.
Yeah. At this ring.
This is an origin story.
Yeah. Remember, at this ring, the wrestling, for the most part, the seniors came, we had the Rumble. It was real. And it was us versus them. I think we won.
There were no talked out spots. Like we were legitimately like trying to take each other down and push each other out.
Real. And then shortly thereafter that, it became a spot where I lured people that I don't like in so that I can beat them in wrestling. Like the other Paul. And at the time, the other Paul.
Oh, yeah.
And people like that. And then
we later ended up becoming friends with.
But we ended up becoming good friends with. The thing that started happening was wrestling was starting to get to its peak. People had came and gone. It was just kind of us that was left. We kind of made our mark.
What is this, like 98, 99-ish?
98. We're going into 98 now where they kind of graduated. It was summer. And they're gone, and we're
talking
kind
about the seniors that you kind of like got in with.
So now we're kind of like moving up, and it was toward the end, right before the cops came and got mad at us and shut the ring. I'm sure
there's people that are not familiar with, the suburbs outside of New York City, in Westchester County. Harrison is just infamously, there's nothing going on there. Yeah. There really is just nothing going on there. It's so like 6 kids hitting each other consensually with garbage cans and chairs on the side of an apartment. Yeah. That's like, oh good God, call the cops. Yeah. This like if we were in the Bronx, we probably would have just been doing that shit until we were 25.
We would have been doing that on the subway, just like those guys.
Yeah.
So the catalyst for the end of that ring was we finally got organized enough to be like, okay, you be this guy, you be this guy, you be this guy. Let's have a ladder match and let's kind of like try to plan it, and I'll jump off the fire escape.
Yes, the fire escape.
So I climb to the second story or the first. I don't know which story.
It was the second.
It was the second.
It was the second story.
I climbed to the second story as a young kid. My father's videotaping it, not telling me to stop. Chris and Dave are down there punching each other. And then it was actually at that point where I realized for the first time that I am afraid of heights.
Yeah.
And it took me, oh God. I mean, I have the raw footage somewhere. It took me about 15 minutes to jump off of that fire escape.
I don't think it was 15 minutes.
I don't know.
It was realistically, I think it was like maybe between 3 and 5, which is forever. When
I'm sure that felt like a half an hour.
Just trying to like sell being like shot and tying up and punching each other, and then we'd like look up and you didn't jump again, and then we'd punch each other again. And, okay, it's been like another 30 seconds. Is he going to go now? I guess not. Punch each other some more.
Then I finally jump, and it was the greatest feeling of my entire life at that point. It was amazing.
You ever hit that octave that you hit? Yeah. You screamed. That was unique.
Yeah,
and I was scream like that.
And I was not Hollywood Pinto really for that.
No, that was.
It was an early form of chaos. It was mankind. It was mankind Hollywood.
Yeah, because we were morons. Oh no, what happened? Oh, that's here it is.
That. Yeah.
And I just
got some velocity on that.
That's right.
I mean, that's not
nothing.
Dave that could have went so wrong in so many different ways, and it turned out really great.
Yeah. So apparently there was an old lady that lived in the house on the second story in the apartment. and she thought that I was trying to rob her
Oh
while I was
Yeah.
out there. So what happened was a day later, we're winding the ropes, which it was just regular ropes for that ring that you couldn't use them, but they were there for show.
Right.
So in the middle of me pulling the rope tight, we had about 8 cops pop out of the bushes and point guns at us.
Did they point guns at us?
They did. And they said freeze. And I asked for permission to let go of the rope.
I wasn't outside. I was in my house.
You were
so
inside.
They pulled up on you.
Yeah.
And did that. And then I came outside and was like, what the hell's going on here? And I think they gave me the whole, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I live here.
See, these stupid cops, they had the perfect opportunity to show up, pop out of the bushes, go, you.
Right.
And they did.
Yeah, they
just
did.
pulled guns. Bunch of fucking jabronis.
Replace the finger with a handgun. And,
so they shut us down, and we had to get rid of the ring.
So they were responding to a woman on the second floor whose balcony you jumped off of.
The day before.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And I don't want to leave them out just because I really don't want to leave them out. For this time period in the EWA, it's me, it's Little Steven, it's Blockbuster Dave, it's Big Daddy Coots. But you also have
Perry was involved a little bit too.
You also have Perry, who would kind of do like a Mr. Perfect type of thing. You had
Perry didn't want to bump.
Yeah, he didn't want to take a bump.
Perry did not want to bump. Perry just wanted involved in the nonsense, but not actually be a moron with the rest of us.
You had Wesley, who was the hardcore addict snatch. And at one point in time, and since we're doing this, I might as well mention it. I mentioned Sprinkles and Skittles. Me and Wesley, and he came up with this name, so it's not me. We were the DXtinators. Very briefly. And he had strawberry colored hair at the time.
That's right.
Yes. And who else? Oh, and I will never forget Big Daddy Dangerous, of course.
Yes.
May he rest in peace. He was a big part of early EWA, and if we had used him right, we could have marketed him as the unbeatable giant who was heavier.
Well, I mean, it's not if we had used him right.
If we had used him right.
If he had been less dangerous.
Because he hurt.
Well, when we go into the ring at Dave's house,
right?
That's when he's there almost all the time. And there were moments where he would almost knock you unconscious.
Yeah.
Even if he pulled his punch or did, the bullshit that we would do back then was you put your hand and then you go like this or whatever. But when his hand hit his other fucking hand and it was on your head, he was like 300 pounds or more. His hand alone was probably like 15 pounds. So 2 of them on you go, good. You would see stars.
I mean, yeah. And I remember one time the Golden Nugget was wrestling and he did the Big Daddy Splasher where he just comes off the rope and does a belly to belly on you. And if he didn't post or put his knees down, he would hit you with his belly first. It completely crushed the Nugget. Completely crushed it.
Poor cousin.
Yeah, my poor cousin. We'll get into that.
So at this point, it sounds like you're already in the PWF, or what is it, PWO?
It was.
So now we're on rig number 3.
They called it PWF, Pinto's Wrestling Federation. It didn't have an official name. It was just us, and we were, there was a belt.
So you guys, like your kids, you're still in high school, you're getting together in someone's backyard, and you're wrestling. And it's no longer real.
We're a little bit older at this point. We're kind of starting to we're also a little bit like degenerates at this point. We're drinking, we're doing things, we're we're not living the kind of lifestyles our parents wanted us to.
No.
You're not
No.
making it to church on Sunday.
Not at all. No. And if we did, we were getting turned away.
No.
Because Joe was starting to throw one of his friends on the altar to try to fight him over the holy water.
Yes,
Well,
exactly. And also, the end of the ring at my house was not good for me. That was like my parents years and years later, up until they were no longer with us. It would just come. They would be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you did that." It was like the peak of shame.
Yeah, because like what are the
like
let's pause for a second on the repercussions of these different things. Like you almost kill a child at some point.
yes.
This is how it starts. Then you have the cops show up because you're accused of trying to rob someone's apartment, whether or not you're trying to jump out of it or not. Like
took them 24
like standing there
hours.
in a fire escape for 5-10 minutes. Like I don't know. These people know what's going on. It's just somebody that lives in that apartment.
You can also throw some assault charges in there for people that I lured there and forced them to fight me. Gary almost died. Although I don't know who was the one that got thrown off the ring and his chest hit the tree trunk.
Oh, that was somebody.
That was somebody. I think it was Gary.
Oh no!
I think it was that might have been Gary.
Was that Ray?
I don't think it was Ray, but Rock and Roll Ray was around for that. Yes.
Whoever it was, does their chest now look like Kofi Kingston's?
I don't know. But fast forward now to junior year, I'm very good friends with Dave the Shave Chandra, and he has this house in West Harrison, and they have a ton of money and a big house and a yard with a space in the back, not visible from the road, surrounded by trees, and about 50 feet on every side. And it was the spot. That was the house we would party at, the house we would have parties at, and the house we can bring anyone we wanted. And we built the ring there. But that is where King Biz comes into play. Sean is there more. Brian Hamill's there all the time. Big Daddy Dangerous, Rock and Roll Ray, Keith. I mean, we had a ton of people. We would have
randos there.
Tom, Sam.
Yeah.
Sam wouldn't wrestle. He just bring people to watch.
We got a lot of people.
Tom would wrestle.
Yeah. Hardcore Tom. And I cannot tell you.
Hardcore Tom.
Brian and I think more because Brian lived in the area and I was up there all the time. When I was building that ring, Brian and I would drive around West Harrison literally looking for construction sites to get wood from. So here is a good story that is out there. I don't mind saying it because it's a known story. What happened was this. We're at our wits' end. We don't have money still, even though we're older, to actually buy shit. Although we were using Dave's dad's tools to build the ring. The ring, because we had all the room in the world, was just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 sheets of plywood, 1, 2, 3, 4 sheets of plywood, 12 sheets of plywood on a box. That was going to be it. So it wasn't that we had to cut anything. It was going to be even. All we had to do was build the frame that fit the complete square piece of plywood, right? So those 12 sheets made a big square, and that was that. Well, only we didn't have plywood. So we were able to get beams and shit from construction sites and everything, but no plywood. We're in high school, and I noticed there's a bunch of plywood on a track in the back field that is warped, has mold on it. They don't use it. I asked my dad, who's working at the school, can we get all that plywood for the ring? He says, I don't know, I'll ask. We're kids, we're getting antsy. These guys listen to me for whatever reason. I still don't know to this day.
Well, it was fun, that's why. That's why.
Right.
We did shit like that didn't benefit us in any way, that put us in harm's way, just outright for fun. There were numerous times.
They all get in my Corsica in a rainstorm. We drive to the school. We put the plywood on the top of the Corsica, and we drove 8 miles to West Harrison with a bunch of plywood on the top of my car with no ropes, with our hands out the window, holding the plywood down. And we used that plywood for the ring.
Mind you, was the Corsica painted yet?
The Corsica was not painted yet. No,
I was gonna say because
it was. The Corsica was eventually painted red and had the Brahma bull spray painted on the back of it, and it said Hollywood on the side.
It was the most recognizable car ever in the history of motor vehicles.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was arrested 2 days later in school and taken out in handcuffs. Yep. And my punishment was that I had to work community service with the custodians over the next summer, which then in turn eventually led to me working for the school as a custodian.
Wow. You really set your future right there with that stuff.
I did.
Punishment they got there.
One can say that wrestling has paved the way for my future.
Fantastic.
But it was left at a misunderstanding because I assumed they were going to say yes. It wasn't really like we were told no and then we did it. We just didn't have patience and we figured they don't want that. It's
remember that happened with me in the steel chair?
Yeah.
We found chairs literally in the dumpster behind the school.
Yeah.
And we used those in the parking lot to have matches.
Yep.
And they just assumed that we stole them from the auditorium or wherever. And we were like, no, you guys were throwing these away. Ask whomever threw them away. And I think it was really just me, maybe Lopez too, because we were the ones who got caught.
Right.
And they told us we're not getting our diploma unless we pay for them. And we're like, okay, whatever. How much are the chairs? They ended up being some ridiculous amount because whoever was selling the chairs to the school is milking the fucking school.
Right.
So they're like, they're $80 each. And I'm like, no, I brought in a pergament flyer.
I was just gonna I knew pergament was involved.
Yeah. Rest in peace to the greatest hardware store ever.
He did that.
And I brought in a pergament flyer, and I was like, for that price, I could buy you fucking 10 of these things for $7 each.
Right.
No, we don't want those.
Want
we
those.
need the same. No. And I was like, then my mother came in. She's like, he's not paying for it, and you cannot withhold his diploma. That's like actually illegal to do. So if you got a problem with it, we could take it to court and everything.
Yeah.
So Mama Cacciatore got involved.
I never fucking paid for him.
And then
this is Mama Cacciatore's first involvements in the EWA.
This is her second time screaming at somebody at the school.
Nice.
Me and Blockbuster Dave and a few of the other guys, we ended up having you had to turn in your textbooks. We had a match in the hallway, slamming each other with textbooks. So here comes the assistant principal, or the dean, whoever he was, Ballantoni. He pushes me against the wall, and we go, well, we're just playing. He goes, oh, I'm playing too.
He's the same one who didn't want me to have my diploma for the fucking chair.
So he goes, you turn in those books or you're not graduating. Get out of my front hallway. So we go to the other dean and we go, hey, this guy said we can't graduate unless we give these books in, but they're broken. So he goes to the other guy and he goes, I want them out of here. I don't care about any books. So you hear them arguing, and then all of a sudden they're like, you can leave. Graduation day, the last day of school, we're in the parking lot. The same guy from the hallway comes up to me and Blockbuster Dave, and he goes to me, they don't pay me to watch you anymore. Leave.
And It was, yeah. All the shit, even like the shit we got away with and did.
Yeah.
And the shit, by the way, this is all pre 9/11.
Yeah.
This is why we got away with all this shit.
Yeah.
Because this
Different
is before any of that, even after
Graduated before 9/11.
And then Columbine happened in 99, right before we graduated. Like a year before we graduated. And they tightened things. They had like a cop in the fucking cafeteria.
Right.
That was it. And I remember fighting a white man because
Alex Whiteman.
Yeah, I threw a fucking chair at him because he was it was like the day after Columbine and he was like making fun of me, talking about how I was like, so I fucking got in trouble for that. Because at that point I think we were kind of had an eye on us.
Yeah. Well, at one point we were such a large group
yeah.
that we kind of took over, and most people that at least knew wrestling was like, oh, they're being the NWO.
Yeah, they're
but
harmless.
Then you had other people that were like, are they going to kill everybody?
Yeah.
Like, no, they actually brought us in the office, and they're like, you guys are scaring people, and blah blah blah. We're like, you people are dumb. We're wrestling. We're the NWO.
Yeah.
Don't you watch television?
Yeah. Well, so like nobody who's gonna kill people. I said I guess around that time we didn't really there was no school shootings really, but nobody would be that loud, boisterous, and wear it on their sleeve all fucking day if they were hiding something. We were just like the football team got away with the craziest shit because they were the football team. They would literally commit crimes around town. They would always, like for football games, they'd always be fucking hungover and throwing up because they were the cops and everybody was cool with them drinking and starting shit and probably doing things way worse than we were.
Yeah.
And here's the thing to always
you guys
remember.
ever throw somebody in the trunk, take them out to the marshlands and paddle them half to death?
No, but I'll tell you a story about my brother.
I love the transition. Please, Joe.
This is sounding like the movie Casino.
My brother starts high school, and I'm gone. The seniors grabbed him, put him in the trunk, and drove him out to the field, and they had a paddle.
In Rye?
No, in Harrison.
In Harrison, okay.
Freshman Friday. This was I dealt with it as well. Not to that level.
They pull him out of the car, and they go, "What's your name?" And he says, "Stephen Pinto." And they said, "What?" "My name is Stephen Pinto." They said, "Is your brother Joey?" And he said, "Yeah." And they gave him his jacket. They go to him, "Please tell your brother that we're sorry." And that was go. And it just happened to be one of those kids was one of the first people that I actually physically threw in the dumpster myself.
Wow.
Full circle.
The thing was, we would never have picked on anybody that was smaller than us or that was like weak or that didn't deserve it. It was just that there were so many fucking assholes in that high school.
Yeah.
Between the preppy kids and the jocks and this and that. And we were so big.
It was if anybody's ever watched like old high school movies like from the 80s, like
it was
like more modern than that. This is like the late 90s, early 2000s, but it was the same idea. Everybody was extremely clicked off and divided, and it was like, here's like the loser nerd kids, and here's like the stoner kids, and here's the football team, and here's like the preppy kids that all live in like the nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we were generally like not any, we were the misfits. We
didn't fit in any of those.
Yeah. No. We were some of us were skateboarders, some of us were whatever. Like wrestling brought us all.
Yeah. It was like, whatever. I'll hang out with the stoners and like, hit the bowl outside. I'll go inside and play Breach with the fucking nerds. Like I really
Yeah.
didn't care.
Right.
Yeah, we all did that shit. Yeah, we didn't give a
Yeah.
fuck.
And here's the thing about our group. Wrestling brought us together. I'm not that bad without being influenced by these degenerates, and they're not that bad without being motivated by me. When
Well, we
we're all
all-
together, we are absolutely out of control, and there are no limits.
Yeah.
There are no limits. It's my big mouth gets worse with Brian's fucking big mouth,
Yeah.
which then makes Bonet 10 times as bad as he's
Yeah.
ever been on his own. And I'm not even going to reference young alternate personality bar days Chris when he would go on his fucking rants.
Uh-oh.
Wasn't there a name? Was there a name for that version of you or no?
I had an alternate. I had a persona.
Yes. Oh
Remember
yes.
this? Oh
Yeah.
no.
Remember
Some switch went off.
You would
Oh
just
yeah, that's what I used to. Yeah, I would like tie a T-shirt around my head and start acting cool, as some people would say.
Well,
yeah.
I have pictures from the 2010 Gathering of the Juggalos too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's where I like borderline gave myself alcohol poisoning.
Yeah.
So
With like
so
a
listen.
third of a bottle of gin.
So we had a huge
the quick sidetrack that reference that Brian just made. We were at a music festival called the Gathering of the Juggalos. I had a bottle of gin that I was drinking out of. I was sipping it like a gentleman, and a security guard came by, and he said, pointing at my bottle, and said, "Hey, you can't have that. You got to give that to me." So
It was a glass bottle. That's why.
it was glass bottle. Thank you for specifying that. I don't know. What was there, like a third of it left? A quarter of it left, maybe. It was
Too
like
much for
Too
one
much.
sip.
chugged it. Chugged the rest of it.
Holy
and I handed him
shit.
the bottle. The guy looked at me like I just like ripped my intestines out. And he goes, "You could have put it in a cup." I just want the bottle. I didn't want your gin. And I was like, "It's all good." And like I started feeling it like already. I'm like, "It's all right, man." And probably 5 minutes later, I was blacked out.
Yeah.
we
Amazing.
also toward the end of high school, I had the altercation with Big Ben, and we had a couple of spots
Ben,
in the hallway
Everybody
there.
kept saying that he looked like me because we were both 6'5", blonde, and not popular.
Right. Well, he had the trench coat.
He did have a trench coat.
He had a trench coat.
He had a very bizarre obsession with Kurt Cobain.
So anyway, you know how they say pick the biggest kid and beat him up in front of as many people as possible?
That was
Yeah.
kind of not fair with Ben. Ben was not a fighter.
No. So I flipped a cafeteria table over in the middle of lunch, and I stone cold punched this kid until he toppled down into a puddle of iced tea and sandwiches. And I kind of rode that wave into my graduation. Long story short, though, from all this,
Yes.
we forged a bond with wrestling, through wrestling, had a big following, made a lot of friends, and that carries over to the West Harrison ring. Now, the West Harrison ring, that is when we officially dubbed it EWA, the Extreme Wrestling Alliance.
And when we came up with it?
Yes.
What
and
year is that?
That's
2001.
2002.
I want to say either 2001 or 2002.
It was
It's-
2000. It was definitely. It was because I remember. It was 2001 because I remember the day of 9/11.
Okay.
We went to the ring, a few of us, and smoked weed and watched all like the military planes and shit flying overhead above the ring.
Right.
So definitely there was there. So it was definitely 2001.
I also remember King Biz
Yeah.
proposed the whole two towers fighting each other thing with me versus
Mike, Big Daddy
He's
Coots
like, bro, we
versus
got to
Big Daddy
capitalize on this.
Dangerous.
Can't waste a minute.
Like they're still carrying the bodies off of Ground Zero, and he's like, bro, I got this great idea, bro.
Right.
He had a lot
now,
of great ideas.
Biz
I
was
think the
first,
Zeitgeist would have got along with that guy.
King Biz was the first person. I'm going to give him this credit, although I know he has a bad rap with certain things. He was the first person really to come along and be like, we're going to do this. We're going to do it great. I'm going to get a camera crew and I'm going to get scripts and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And here's the thing. Maybe that's our thing now. But back then, if you were to tell me, Chris, Dave, and Brian, and Wesley what we're doing, not a good idea. It just wasn't going to happen. All we did was make fun of him.
The camera crew is actually still on their way.
He never got a camera crew. I love him though, and he played a key role in upping our game as far as having a roster that made sense. And the big thing right there was we were still wrestling for real at the time. The matches were real.
Even as you turn it into the EWA.
Even as we turn it into the EWA, we open up, we have a Rumble. The Rumble should have been videotaped. I do not know why it wasn't.
Because everybody was in it.
We didn't tape. We were just like, I don't know, feel like wrestling? Let's go.
Yeah.
There was so much shit we didn't videotape.
And
this was before the era where the kids like to say, if it's not on Instagram, it didn't happen.
Right. And that ring had the ropes going across on an angle, so there was an apron, so it cut the corners of the plywood off. And you just stood on that.
Yeah.
Like, remember wasn't there there was like a ladder in one corner? There was like a sign in another corner. That was a fucking badass ring.
You just climb the ladder to the top of the post and jump off. The ladders were nailed onto the posts. And we had mattresses, and guess what was on the mattresses, Mr. Zeitgeist?
What's that?
Carpet.
We had to reupholster that ring, didn't we?
Yeah.
A couple times.
We just kept putting carpet, and carpet was fine.
Put more carpet on top of it.
Put more carpet.
Amazing.
So we have the Rumble, and I get knocked out.
This Rumble is not like a Battle Mania thing. There's no real there's no episode 1 yet.
Hey, we're all here. No. Let's do this.
Yeah.
It's real.
Nobody's got a camera.
I remember.
Yeah, I get knocked out. Blockbuster Dave is in there. King Biz is in there. And the real deal, Keith Jr. is in there. I tell you, this happened. I saw it. It's real. And it was amazing. Keith Jr. is about, at the time, 80 pounds soaking wet, a quarter of the size as Biz. Biz is a monster. Biz chases this kid towards the edge of the ring and lunges at him. Little Keith, ducks, grabs the ropes, hits the apron like he's ducking a bomb. Biz jumps over him and eliminates himself and then chases little Keith off the fucking property. Right? Blockbuster Dave wins the Rumble, becomes the champion. Biz comes back and says it doesn't count, blah, blah, blah. Dave takes the title. I backed the course. At the time, my car was driven all the way through the yard, always backed up to the ring. Dave takes the title.
This is onto their yard. There's no driveway here.
There's no driveway.
And why is that?
It's yard, and it's like into the yard.
Into the yard.
But why?
We just did what we wanted.
I was thinking like maybe there was like a practical reason within the match, like you wanted to like do a spot on the car.
No,
we just had stuff in the car.
Okay.
Dave grabs the belt.
40 feet.
He grabs the championship belt, which is our EWA ECW title. Gives Biz the finger, and as Biz is running towards us, Dave hops in the Corsica. I hop in the Corsica. Wesley and Chris hop in the chorus. The guy, I think Brian might have hopped in, and we peeled out and drove off with Biz chasing the fucking car. And he was like, "Get back here! It's not done." And we're like, "Fuck you! He's the champion."
It was like a cartoon. That was like a true, actual, like Looney Tunes moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you couldn't have asked for it. Like, it was all accidental.
Yeah.
Right.
And you couldn't ask for anything better.
So
Like, at that time, we could not have scripted anything better than that.
He's the big guy. He's like a big monstrous guy, and he's just like he's the one that jumps over the small kid.
This big fellow that we're describing
and just
is
chasing everybody.
He's probably 6'2", 6'3". He's very wide. And for anybody who watches like football, he has like a offensive lineman build. Like he's thick. He looks fat, but then if you punch him, like he doesn't jiggle. Like it's just fucking solid.
Yeah.
And he was just really upset that he didn't get to win.
Right.
Like legit.
Just picture like Andrew Dice Clay on a lot of cocaine.
Perfect.
And it's that's who he was.
Wow.
And steroids.
Now evolves from that. Hardcore Tom was part of the seniors when we were freshmen. We became tight with him. He wrestled a bunch of times. Biz was there. Wally Valenti was there. We had an incident where Wally has a baseball bat and he tries to hit one of us with the bat and he hits the rope and the bat bounces back up and smacks him in the face. And he gets this golf ball size welt right on the head. About a week later, I think Hardcore Tom, Brian, you probably know the time frame for this. Remember when Tom was messing around with the guitar and he split his head open?
Yeah, he needed staples.
They had to staple the head.
I
I didn't tell the Zeitgeist that story right before Condiment Wars.
I think that was outside of the ring, though. I think they were doing like a dumb thing at like a house party or something. And he's like,
that might not have even been EWA related.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
That's why you gimmick the guitar.
Right. But long story short, we had a great run there. It became scripted, but scripted in a freestyle way, kind of like we're not doing it for real, but we're leaving it up to each other to kind of surprise each other with what weapons we're going to hit each other with.
Yeah, did we have were the outcomes of the matches like predetermined? I kind of don't remember. I think at first when we started doing it, they kind of weren't. We would just kind of feel it out, and then like whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I guess you're going to win this one.
I think so. Well, after because I remember there was one point where I was wrestling Rock and Roll Ray or his brother.
Yes.
Will the Thrill.
Will the Thrill.
And I don't think either of us knew we were wrestling each other before that or knew the outcome of it. So we were just like trying to win. I don't even remember what the fuck happened with that match, but
no direction.
Yeah. Because we videotaped it, but I don't think we were videotaping it for like presentation.
There was no episode. There was no order.
Yeah,
it was just about who the champion was.
Documenting our fun.
Yeah.
I guess we'll tape this one.
Yeah.
We were kind of following the belt. And then it became we wanted secondary characters for our main characters to beat. And that's when the Red Rider was born, the Red Bull was born, the Golden Nugget was born.
But wait, hold on. I think I kind of remember the Golden Nugget being around during the ring at my house. I think that wasn't that like the first appearance of the Golden Nugget? It may not have been taped or consistent, but I feel like that was the first. I don't even think it was like an official appearance. I think you just showed up in the costume and started going like, oh, and then like later, like
wait,
ran off. And
you mean my cousin?
Your normal clothes, and we're like, oh, I don't know who that was. It must have been my cousin.
My cousin shows up.
Yeah.
He's in black. He's only wearing a gold mask.
Just fucking kayfabing us, protecting the business to guys in the business.
Yeah. Now the thing was, the Golden Nugget originally was a heel. He didn't talk. He just made crude gestures, and flip people off. he was supposed to antagonize you. The Red Rider, I don't know if we ever really early on gave him a thing. But the Red Bull was Biz's other character, and he drank Red Bull. I thought that made sense.
Yes.
Brian had a couple of different people he did.
Wrestler.
Wrestler, yeah. And
Yeah.
at one point, you just showed up there to hang out, and whoever was around, you wrestled. But when we did get a little bit more organized, what started happening was like Dave had the belt. He drops it to Wesley. Wesley drops it to me. I drop it back to Wesley. Wesley drops it back to me. Biz tried to win the belt, and he just never got his hands on the belt. While this is going on, everyone else is having kind of like fun doing the mid-card matches. And just like kind of what ended up happening in our new EWA, the mid-card matches are more fun. There's no pressure. It's not about the belt. It's just do what you want, you know? But here's the thing. It very quickly, toward the end, became, you know, the belt kind of went between the same 3 or 4 people, and no one else really got a chance. By the time we were ready to do that, we had to move on. The ring was old. I forget the reason why we had to close it. I think Dave's parents had just had enough, or they thought they were moving, and then they never moved. And there was really, the thing about it was, I don't think any of us were that invested or upset. It was just something cool that we did for a certain amount of time. And we were just like, it is, you know, whatever. It is what it is. Like, no, we didn't get together and go, we're going to have one last show. Or
we're I think when that ring was torn down, we were all like, we were like 21, 22 at that point, weren't we?
Yeah. And
we're in our early 20s now. And
Yeah.
This is something that we started doing when we were like 13, 14.
Right. So we're like,
we're barely adults, and this is already something we've been doing almost for a decade.
Yeah.
But understand, my brother was getting older, and he had been wrestling and became the Punisher. Brian was very much coming into his own as far as like, he was always great in the ring. But toward the end there, it was more interesting to watch what he was going to think of doing rather than just us doing the same old thing. And we really were trying to give Chris a turn as the champion. I had the one match at the end with him, and almost kind of in the same way where like we kind of feel it out. Whatever happened in that match, it kind of just went differently. And I think what happened was I won it and defended the title with the idea of we're going to have a rematch. And what ended up happening was whatever happened, and we had to close the ring. And we ended up having a buried alive match with Rob Gribb and somebody separately from the ring. Yeah.
It was supposed to be Paul.
Yeah. And
I think it kind of turned into something. That was a little bizarre.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
It was weird.
And then took a lot of planning as far as
especially since Paul never wanted to wrestle, had any interest in wrestling. Whenever we were doing it, he kind of seemed like he didn't really want to be there while we were doing it.
He did commentary, right?
He did commentary, which is where Greg, aka Walt Pauly, gets the commentator name from, because Paul was commentating early on. Rob gets buried and he just completely freaks out.
Yeah, didn't his like parents threaten to call the cops on us or something?
Yeah, it got really dark for a minute. Yeah.
It was just kind of like, let's fuck with the weird kid.
Just get in a hole. God damn it.
Bury him with the wheelbarrow. With the wheelbarrow of dirt that we were clearly waiting with. We fast forward years later. A lot of drinking days later, but years later, we end up in a house that we rented. I meet Jim Lyon, who became a very good friend of mine. And Jim Lyon, who was a big wrestling fan, says to me, well, Joe, I hear all about the old wrestling days and this and that. Why don't you do it again? I would love to be a part of it. And I said,
he had his own group of friends that he was also doing backyard wrestling with pretty much at the same time that we were.
At the same time, but we never crossed paths with them.
Right.
So I started thinking, you know, maybe James will have one match. And that's kind of where the wheels start turning. And I think if I build a good ring, because now I'm older, I have money, I have power tools, I kind of know what I'm doing a little bit.
It's a trade. I had a bunch of hand tools and power tools and stuff.
Chris had stuff. We're all living in a house together. We have a private yard. And it just so happens, now you can call this fate. There was a giant rectangle concrete slab in the middle of the backyard. Now, if that's not something, if that's not the world telling us, do it. I don't know what is.
If that's not Dennis Quaid talking straight to you.
Right. So I start thinking about it and I'm like, okay. The plan was build the ring, have one match, but one match planned to perfection. Have the one match recorded that you can look back on and say, hey, I had a real wrestling match. Condiment Wars, right? But anyway, so we did this, and I built that ring, and that ring was amazing. I think that was probably, it was a different design from the upstate ring. There was a lot of bounce. It was clean. It was neat. It wasn't as big, but the posts were double posts with hooks and rods going through them, and you can wind the ropes by tightening the nut. And the ropes were real tow cables wrapped in pipe insulation with duct tape, and they were solid. And we had real turnbuckles, and we figured all that shit out. And because it was a double post, there was a piece of wood on top. So all you had to do was climb the ladder that was nailed to the back of the post and stand on that piece of wood. Something that we did not have upstate in the newer ring. That we had poles, and there was no way to jump off the top of the post. You had to use the ropes. We came up with the idea from a boxing ring to put the stabilizing poles on the ropes. And they were tied into each corner so that it kept them sturdy and tight, and you can climb the corner of the ropes and not sink down.
Yeah, the ropes on that ring stayed tight for a long time.
And then, by the way, this is the first ring with ropes that we could actually use.
We can use.
Yeah.
It was the first ring with ropes that we can use. And now
it's a good looking ring.
Yeah. And now we're at the point in our lives where we can drink. So me and James get Chris and Dave and Brian and Sean and my brother. I think Big Daddy Dangerous had passed away by then. And we honored him by creating El Gordito.
You can catch me in the cherry red 150. Got the grizzly locked in the stizzy. Pop the glizzy doing 60
here
down a wall with some drunk
El Gordito was a tribute to Mike. So that's where that character,
also known as Fat Mike, as I'm told.
So that was, a way for us to keep Mike with us throughout the entirety of the wrestling. You can say we're making fun, but I mean, we're just doing the character to kind of keep his memory alive. That's really all it was.
It's a great character.
It is.
I'm honored to have defeated El Gordito with the moonsault through a table that almost impaled me.
Right. So what happens is we have the new ring. It came out a lot better than I thought. And the idea of just having the one match kind of fell wayside.
Well, I think once we found out, too, that you were building it, we were all like, oh, fuck, it's on.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to build a whole fucking ring for one match. No way. Right.
Yeah. And we're older.
I could have been a passerby in that street, seen you building something, seen a ring, and been like, oh, I got to get in on that.
Well, the fun thing about this was it was in a normal neighborhood. The neighbors,
Yeah.
I think, were all illegal and just came out and watched while we wrestled and would never call the cops.
I
Right.
enjoyed it.
And you
That's the
couldn't see
perfect
the ring.
audience.
Well,
And
they
you
had
couldn't.
they would sit on their balcony and look out the window and cheer us on and shit.
Amazing.
Yeah,
That
and
was,
you
that was,
couldn't
that
see.
was some of our best audiences.
There were a couple things in the beginning. So number one, there I always felt bad that it was said and that it was just me, Dave, and Wesley that got to be the champions. So off the bat, I said if there's a new EWA and we're gonna go again, I'm gonna pick up where we left off, and I am going to have the match with Chris that we wanted to have, and I'm gonna drop it to Chris. After Chris, it's got to be yes, because James helped me create this. He gets a title run, but Brian Hamill and my brother have to also be the next champions. Everybody is going to get a chance to have the belt, have a run, enjoy it. We're not going to be overly serious. We're not going to worry about who would win in real life. It's not going to be any weird shit like
I
when we
never
were
took it
kids.
like that anyway.
Yeah,
No,
I was never like that. I was just really. It was always just something that was fun.
yeah,
Um,
it's just
it's
gonna
like
be
we
fun.
were theater kids, kind
Yeah.
of, but doing cool shit.
Right,
Yeah.
You know?
right.
Which-
Brian comes up with Claudio Cacciatore, which really I felt made him come alive. It gave him
Oh yeah, and I was
Yeah.
no longer like shy and shit, and
right.
I had been in college already and fucking went to school in New York and
Right, we're all different people at this point.
went opened my shell.
We're in our mid to late 20s.
I was gonna ask how old you guys were and how many years had passed since you like tore down the last ring.
It was like a 4 or 5 year hiatus.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was at least 4 or 5 years or 6.
What the hell did you all
Maybe-
do when you
maybe
didn't have a ring?
6.
We drank a lot.
That's when
alcoholics.
lots of omissions happened.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Right.
So we start getting an audience because it's local, and people have girlfriends and other friends and this and that, and so there's people around. We started getting creative. Remember now, in the original EWA, the referee was always a guy in a clown mask. Now the new referee is a guy in a hockey mask, and we have the Foot Locker shirt. We started getting creative because now we're at the house and we have resources. We have music that we're adding, and we're shooting episodes, and there's a structure. So we're doing 3 matches an episode, and they were a little long because in the beginning we kind of didn't really get it together. We were still kind of using a lot of weapons.
We're having mid card matches that were a half hour plus long, which was
Right.
great.
Yeah.
But it's like
but-
when you're doing it, it doesn't feel that long, and you
No.
don't care because you're like, "This is fucking great. I want to be
Yeah.
in here
Yeah.
longer."
So the
Yes.
first road bump was kind of similar to the situation Brian in high school with the chairs. One of the schools had thrown away chairs, and we had gotten them out of the dumpster and brought them to that ring. Greg Dust brings somebody from a newspaper to cover with good intentions the Golden Nuggets backyard wrestling story.
I do remember this.
And
Right.
what happens
Right.
is
Were you working with Greg at this point? Did you know this guy?
What year was this?
What paper was that?
Oh,
one of
is
the
this-
local?
Was this
It
the
was a
2010s?
Yeah.
So this is
2010
probably the
probably.
Daily Voice. Yeah.
yeah, I think it was.
What
Yeah,
happens
you
is
probably knew this guy, Brian.
Was it an tall Italian guy?
We
No,
don't-
not
I don't
really.
remember.
I don't know. He was
It
a
was
white guy.
probably Phil Corso. Did he
No.
look like kind of a hipster?
I think his first name was Mike.
No,
I
he
think
looked
it was-
like he would play beer league softball.
Oh,
Yes. 100%.
okay. We might not have been working together yet then.
So what happens is this guy interviews the Golden Nugget, and the Golden Nugget's joking around and stuff, and he made a joke because the chairs had one of the school names on it, and and the Golden Nugget said, they were thrown out. but don't tell anyone they're from the school. Well, this fucking asshole goes and writes in the newspaper that more or less, they're doing this and they took stuff from the school, and I'm like, you fucking dick. And
Very
Greg got really mad. Greg got really mad at the kid. It wasn't that long after that we just kind of like decided we're not going to draw too much attention. We're just going to keep it simple. We didn't have mats on the ring yet. It was still
and I just pause there for a second because I was gonna ask, like, okay, you mentioned like getting, a lot of people watching. You have the neighbors, but people are coming. You're building it. It kind of like reminds me of listening to like CM Punk talk about building his backyard federation thing and like charging entry and getting like. I was gonna ask, like, did that ever get close to being you guys?
Nope.
No, we never charged anybody. We had people watch. We did leave the ring in costume and walk to like
Chipotle.
In
Nice.
costume and got food and walked back. That might have drawn a bunch of attention.
Yeah,
Like,
right in the
yeah,
Rybrook Mall.
Well,
Yeah.
but like say that article doesn't out you guys as thieves. And it goes well. Like, what could you have seen that turning into like, oh, we got really good press here and more people want to know about it, more people want to come.
I don't think we cared. We just thought it was cool we were in the fucking paper.
Yeah.
Right.
We didn't think like because we weren't, again, we were doing it for the same reasons. It was to enrich our souls, not our bank accounts.
Right.
Yeah.
Thought that it would ever come to that. We never had the notion or a fucking our sense of self was never as bloated as CM Punk's could ever be. So we never thought to charge people. Even if we threw parties, like we got kegs and shit, we never even fucking charged for that.
I never asked anyone, for money. Now when we first started,
watching us.
Say that again, Chris.
Just happy to have people watching us.
Yeah.
People there.
It was awesome.
When we first started, I was really happy. There were two things that I was upset about. Number one, I finally got a good ring that worked, and Wesley, he knows he wanted to fucking wrestle in that ring, and he purposely wouldn't wrestle in the ring just to spite me, and it's a shame because he would have had a fucking blast.
Was he good?
Yeah.
He said he had a fee. Remember?
Yeah, I had.
Oh
He
shit!
said if you wanted to, he's like, if you want me to wrestle, you got to give me $500.
And he would only.
I love how big of a fucking dick Wesley is.
500.
Like, what a fucking dick.
500
by the
bucks.
way.
500 bucks, and it had to be that I got my ex-fiance to come to fight him.
Wow.
Yeah. So that wasn't going to happen. The other thing that happened was Blockbuster Dave, although he was around, he was a sport about it, but he was kind of like done. He didn't really want to do it, but he gave me the one match, and that's all I asked him for.
And it was good.
And we had the most amazing match, and to this day, and you can say, yes, I went off the ladder, over the top rope to the outside of the ring, through a table covered in light bulbs, and that might have been a good spot. I jumped off the tower upstate, and that was a good spot. Dave took a German suplex during that match directly onto the rung of a steel ladder with no cushion, no plan whatsoever, and just got his neck and his arm stuck on a piece of metal. I mean, it could have been a disaster. He had a gash. He had a mark over here on his shoulder. He just took a German suplex on a metal ladder.
Wow.
For someone who prior to the match was just like, yeah, I guess. All right, Joe, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Well, that was
He
the vibe.
pretty invested.
Right.
That was the vibe there. Once you made it onto the property, it's like going to Disneyland.
Yeah, you're gonna ride
it. Like, we're gonna do this. This is great.
You're gonna take a ride. We had crazy parties back there. We had the boot that we were passing around. This is pre-COVID, so it was okay. for everyone to drink beer out of the same glass boot.
We all gave each other AIDS.
We all gave each other diseases. So here's the thing.
Did you ever get so drunk that you stopped using the glass boot and just started using shoes?
No.
Ooh, that would be a good idea, though.
Here's the thing, and we touched on this during the Greg Dust versus Claudio thing. What happens is, it's interesting. We have new people. We have the French Wonder. We have Brian's new character. We have Hollywood Pinto kind of evolving. We have Big Daddy Coots becoming Christopher Anthony. We have Jim Lyon. We have more people. We have different ideas.
You're also involving chaos more in
Chaos. Chaos
well.
is born. Chaos was going to be born. We have new tag teams. We have El Gordito.
Punisher is more involved.
My dad's physically involved as Elvis. There was a lot going on, and Steven was older, so he was the Punisher, but he was the Punisher like really hurting us.
Yeah.
So what happens is,
be in the throat.
First couple of episodes is like old EWA. Me and Chris have a sensational match in the first pay-per-view where I dropped the title to him. But it was a long match with a ton of weapons and a ton of spots. And at one point, I think I cracked the belt over your head so hard that the belt
was a receipt.
actually...
I know. I remember that. Yeah, that was a receipt from... We tried to do a spot where I whipped you. I whipped you, and then I was going to like kind of clothesline you with the ladder. But then when I swung the ladder out, I forgot to hold it closed, and it opened up, and the foot of the ladder hit you right in the jaw. And I think you had just had a surgery on your mouth.
Yeah,
and like you like legitimately had like stitches in your mouth that were still healing, and I hit you like right where the fucking stitches were.
Yeah. Now we did
got
that
a receipt in the form of belt across temple.
Right. We did that. We had light bulbs. We had all sorts of crazy shit. But what happens is interesting. We start to gear away from a ton of weapons to making it kind of special. I did get power bombed through a table over the top rope and dislocated my vertebrae, and still continued to fight, and then went through a ladder and still got up during a Jim Lyon Chaos match. But we started as the French Wonder got developed and got his manager, Pierre, and Claudio got more colorful, and Greg Dust was born, and the rivalry between the Underworld and the Stunad Squad formed, and the Golden Nugget started talking for the first time, where he had a personality and a voice, and Quackers came out. It kind of turned into, the mid-card is kind of like more fun to do, and the tag matches are more fun to do than us just concentrating on 30-minute long title matches with a bunch of weapons. And what started to happen is we got this structure where we're like, we have awesome tag teams, awesome ideas. Let's really start planning. So I wouldn't say the matches were 100% scripted. We were still freestyling, but it definitely got brought up to another level. The second we hit the first Battlemania and we saw what we can do if we put some thought and effort and planning into it, the first Battlemania is really what made the new EWA be reborn and kind of rebranded. The first Battlemania was amazing. And it's one of my favorite matches. It was like a representation of what we can bring to the table as adults. And we don't have to be as dangerous for it to be fun.
Yeah.
Well, ironically, you say that. There was a man that brought a sword into the ring.
What?
Well, but you know what? That's where the drinks and the drugs came in, really.
Hey, I brought a fire extinguisher.
Oh, that one destroyed everybody. We all fucking remember that. It was also like a cartoon.
Yeah.
Because now you see us, now you don't. When the smoke cleared, there was fucking nobody left.
Yep. I brought a fire extinguisher in there. I mean,
Jumper cables. The jumper cables.
The jumper cables.
Big man Dick Cox, that random guy that I met through my now wife, then girlfriend, and then he just for legal reasons. And
Right.
We should not speak of him anymore.
We won't talk about that. There was the famous Chaos Gym line match where Chaos gets hit by the car.
Yeah. That was on the street.
That's in like my top 2 spots.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna guess there wasn't really that much prep or conversation going into that one.
Oh
no, there was.
We're really playing stuff out at this point. We're really like,
because at this point we're all either going to school, got jobs, we're getting older, and we don't really want to get fucking hurt.
Right.
Or we care. Like when we were in high school and in the early 2000s, it was like, let's just go fucking crazy.
Right.
And you had that mentality where like nothing can hurt you, whatever.
Right.
Fuck, whatever, I'll go to the hospital, whatever.
Yeah. And I'll give the French Wonder credit. Mike really wanted us to try wrestling and to see what we can do with the wrestling, like regular moves. Like, don't let the weapons be the match. Let the weapons be just a special thing that happens once in a while.
He was 100% right.
We were also becoming wrestling fan, because at that point, wrestling was kind of meh.
Yeah.
And then we were all discovering Ring of Honor, Chikara.
Yeah.
And I know most of those wrestling matches never involved, outside of like Necro Butcher being in the Ring of Honor or something, having a death match here or two. And CZW, but we weren't really watching that as much. We were watching all this newer stuff at the time, and everybody was just having incredible wrestling matches. And we were trying to like, oh, you see that thing? Because my name comes from my being a fan of Claudio Castagnoli.
Right.
I was like, well, I need a name for this Italian guy, and that's it came from that.
Yeah.
So just watching like Generico versus Castagnoli and Kevin Steen,
PWG too.
Yeah, all that shit. We were all like, some of us were fucking obsessed. I was collecting DVDs and shit.
I got them. Where I think they're down here.
They would sell them at FYE too. Yeah, I have somewhere
sold out.
Somewhere I do have them too.
I don't remember if I was really going to any independent shows before I met you guys. And I remember doing like Cybernetico, going to that with you guys. Yeah.
That was great. We got to meet Kevin Owens.
That's right. That's right.
I tell this to everybody that is a fan of wrestling and knows who Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, whatever you want to call him, is. I love that man. That guy showed up at an event that had, how many people were there? Like 150? It was a bar.
Something like that.
Where he was wearing the Transformers mask?
He wrestled at a bar and then proceeded to sit at his merch stand where people, the entire place lined up, and he shook everybody's hand and listened to whatever they had to say, didn't rush anybody, and was just like, thanks for coming.
Unlike Hogan.
Every single person. Zero for nothing. He wasn't like, hey, can you buy a shirt at least? Didn't give a shit. He was just happy to fucking talk to people and see people out and wrestling.
And most of which, like, especially at those shows, especially like Chikara and shit, people were, you would see them outside smoking, or you see them walking to the store around the corner, and you're like, holy shit, is that Chuck Taylor?
Right.
And all, it was great, and you could say what's up to him. I remember before, like, one of the show, I think it was Joshi Mania, I got to talk to Eddie Kingston, and he was sitting out there having a cigarette with Aja Kong. If you don't know, who is like the legendary Japanese wrestler who was booked that day, or booked for one of those Joshi Mania shows, and she was just hanging out with Eddie Kingston right outside the venue. And I got to just like fan out for like 30 seconds.
I got to meet Eddie while he was out in the wild, not even at a wrestling show. I met him at the Rambling House
Where he was the
where he
security.
used to bounce. He would bounce there. I don't think he was bouncing there that night. He just like kind of showed up there. It was Halloween night, and I was dressed as Cactus Jack. It was a good Cactus Jack costume too. I had the shirt with the sleeves cut off. I had a staple gun in my back pocket. I had blood coming out of my ear and the wig. I shaved my beard in the fashion that he had. I looked good, and he approached me and was like, "I love your costume," and I'm like, "I love you, my man."
But what I was saying is like that is sort of where we were at.
Yeah,
and that's kind of why we're abandoning weapons and stuff too. That coupled with not wanting to really get that hurt,
right,
and shit. But it was just like the feeling of like pulling off a decent match or a couple of good spots where you don't botch anything or everything's cool. It was great.
Right. That became important. We still had some issues. We still had a recording issue because now we're trying to put quality episodes out. I'm learning Nero, and I had not been, into that until then.
And this is an video editing software.
Yeah.
Starlight.
Yeah.
It's the secret sauce.
I'm trying to figure that out, and at that time we did our music live.
By secret sauce, Brian, do you mean the white sauce that Greg would use when he was working as a chef at the Craftsman?
Yeah.
Wait, I don't know what you're talking
about. Alfredo sauce, I'm guessing.
And that time our music was live and our commentary was live.
Yeah.
Everything was recorded together. So there's stuff from us being drunk still or this or that where we're cursing or whatever where, you can't edit it out because it's just in there. But I would say we get to season 2 and we had some really good pay-per-views and some really good title runs, and we really established like a good setup, and then we were really upset that we had to move out. We kind of we hit a road bump, and I was moving out and this one was moving out. We were going to lose the house, and me and the French Wonder get together, and I go, look, we rent a U-Haul, we put whatever we have here in it, we drive it upstate to my father's cabin, we build it there. Now, upstate was an hour and a half away. It was a pipe dream. I never imagined that we were going to get it set up there the way we set it up, and it was going to work and people were going to want to go. But we went up there. We got stuck in the U-Haul in the mud. It took us about 3 hours to get out of the mud. We unloaded everything. And then me, Chris, and Bonet, for like a whole summer, we just put this thing together. It was tires on the bottom, so water went through, a frame, plywood on top, mats on top of mattresses on top of that, gym mats on top of that, and then old wrestling mats that got thrown out and given to someone else and then given to me. And and then we put a canvas on top. So this ring was sensational. It had padding all around. It had a blockade to keep the woods back. And then we have the tower, which is a 25-foot high fucking tower. And finally, the recording issue that we had with the other ring, when the guy's standing on a ladder, but he's not high enough and he's shooting through the ropes, that is no more. Now you have this new look where you're on a tower and you're shooting down into the ring with no interference in the camera.
Kind of like a hard cam.
Yeah. So that was amazing. And now we're up there. And then I very quickly became, if we're going to drive up there for an hour and a half ride, we better have a fucking plan.
Right.
And that is where things got a bit complicated. It got scripted, and there were planned storylines and matches, and we talked about things on the way up and on the phone beforehand and while we were there, and we planned promos, and we figured out what we were doing in the long run.
In some sense, it simulated the experience of maybe being an independent wrestler, traveling and kind of honing the craft.
Right.
Right. You hear that a lot from wrestlers.
Honestly, I used to love those rides when it would be like four of us all in the car
Great.
together.
Well, I fucking like this is like where I start.
love those rides.
This is
I
where I
love
start to
those
come
rides.
in, and I love the fact that like Joe would just go and pick everybody up, and then if somebody wasn't answering because it would be 5, 6 a.m. or whatever it was, and you start talking about like just going in there, hog tying the person, throwing them in the trunk, and just like getting everybody up there, like it was
Yes.
great.
So I
And
would
I would
say,
usually be half drunk or half asleep or half naked. And like I remember like one time I had like Hamill and Greg over at my place till like 3 in the morning, and we were going up wrestling the next day, so we were in Joe's car by like 7 a.m.
so you joined in season 3.
Yeah.
I would say that your excitement about it and your knowledge of cameras and what you brought to the table as far as new ideas and recording options and ref cams, GoPros, the
Which the
whole nine
fucking
yards.
WWE uses all the time now. The ref cam, they call it the
Yeah,
ref cam, these fucks.
yeah, they copied us.
Just be mindful. I got this camera right here.
Zeitgeist checking out local neon.
Ring the bell.
Unbelievable.
And your energy where you
For
there
our
was
world
a point, there was a few
That's
points
right.
where I was kind of like, James had left because he didn't really want to go back and forth anymore. Matt had left. Steven stopped wrestling. There
The
was
Dark
just a
Outsider
couple.
was that, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was just a couple of us. And I'm like, we hit season like 5, and I'm like, what are we gonna do? And then you really brought the Zeitgeist into his own, where he became like that other heel that can really fuel the place. And as we didn't give up and we persevered, we had new ideas, and the crayons were born, and the Golden Nugget turns heel, and
And
people
and Greg
evolve.
and Greg met a bunch of weirdos at a bar, and he brought them to wrestle with us for a few
We
seasons.
got those 3 people. We got Frank Freedom. We got Starguy. I mean, we had Commissioner Bro. I mean, there was a lot of,
Yeah.
is this the last season? Oh no, we picked up so and
Right.
so. And we kept the ball rolling.
Well,
I
and
would
I,
say,
and I'll say this real quick too. When I first came in, I was actually really impressed by the whole thing because there was a lot of you at that time still, but
yeah,
like the live production of it, like you guys had the stereo, you were playing the entrance music
yeah,
as the wrestlers were coming out, you were having the matches, Joe was running around like organizing things. So like from an outsider and it being my first time up there, I'll never forget thinking like, oh wow, this is an actual thing. Because like
that,
I grew
yeah,
up wrestling in parks with my buddies and like, us being dipshits, just like
Just
fucking
kind of like
killing
trying
each
out new
other.
things, right?
Like, but we were just like, putting the sharpshooter on and trying to like, bust our friends' fucking backs. Like we weren't making it. So like the fact that you guys had any kind of plan, I was like, oh my God, this is like fucking like paradise up here.
yeah. Battlemania
Like
2 had,
I was just like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my
Well, that
life.
was the
Even
same
though
Greg,
like,
were you
other kids
were you
too.
there, were you there when we all had the house together?
no, that's the thing. I missed that entire
You were
thing.
not there. I
I
could
did.
swear
I met you
you were there.
guys. I met you guys right as I guess you guys were losing the house because like Greg started working with me at Daily Voice in 2012. I think like mid late
Yep. Okay.
2012. I met you guys. I think like 2013. We like went out and hung out in White Plains one night or something. And then like yeah, I joined you guys that summer, but I never even knew about the house.
and then I think maybe as we hit season 4, I think after James left, I felt a pressure to kind of like figure something out. I really committed to the idea of, if we get our shit together, we can have fun, but I want to hit 100 episodes. Like it means something to me. And I feel like, and you guys can disagree with me if you want, in my own way, I kind of became like the Paul Heyman of the EWA. I would say anything to get you guys up there, knowing that we have a certain amount of time. We're only going to be able to do this for a certain amount of years. I want to hit a certain number of episodes, and we have a certain amount of matches to get there. And unless I drive everybody nuts and just push to get us up there, don't worry, it's not raining.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
By the way, this is
We wrestle in a ring.
Paul Heyman.
What?
Yes.
ECW Paul Heyman.
If
Yes.
you are
Oh,
a Paul Heyman.
ECW. Yes. Just to get everyone there, and then I knew as long as I got them up there, you're an hour and a half away from home. We're there for the day.
And
We
I'll
worked the
vouch
quick
for
there
knowing that Joe lied about the weather every time.
every time. And you know what? 7 out of 10 times it was fine.
And
But
if it wasn't, we still had the matches.
In the rain enough to not give a fuck. It's just uncomfortable given where we were.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Uncle, whoa! Oh my God! 1, 2, 3.
Some of those rain matches were kind of hilarious. Anyway,
They were.
Like, we would like try to whip each other and then slip and fall, and
Right.
it was such a mess.
And then there was a while where there's half of the new EWA where we're upstate and I have the episode written, but based on who showed up, the storyline changes.
Right.
So we were going to do this, but so and so didn't come. So instead of waiting,
Yeah.
we're going to still finish the episode by just changing this and doing this.
And we
then
talked a
when
lot
so-
about that. We talked a lot about that with Claudio and with Greg in the process of the last 2 episodes featuring their rivalry.
Right.
And like talking about, and Brian really went into it in the last one about just like what could have been, right? And like, even if it didn't start as intending to be a rivalry, it turned into one, and then it had all that potential. But over time, like you work with what you got because,
well,
Greg isn't there.
Which helped too, because there was shit that we planned that probably would have been more just fucking lame compared to what actually happened.
Right.
Well, think about it.
Yeah, it's the
Think
flip
about
side of that too.
Nobody wrote, we're going to start a rivalry between Greg and Brian, and that's going to create 2 factions, the Underworld and the Stunad Squad, and those 2 factions are going to be the catalyst of pretty much the entire storyline of the EWA going into season 6 from season 1. That happened. It wasn't like you 2 wrestled and nothing happens and then you 2 wrestle later at the pumpkin match. It's you 2 wrestle and then it evolves into the Underworld versus the Stunad Squad, which evolves into almost everything that we've ever gotten into. It's the catalyst. It bred the Crayons and the Golden Nugget going heel and controversy between this one and that one. Like there was so many avenues and doors that opened. None of that was planned. It's that, so-and-so is going to go upstate. We can have these matches. Let's see what the story turns into. And it was always, here's my idea. But then Brian has a better idea. Bonet has something to add. Chris comes up with gangster crayons from the 40s on the way up to the fucking place. And all of a sudden, you have heel Golden Nugget followed by a bunch of assholes as crayons holding bags of candy and calling them boss.
It is good to be me, Red, isn't it? EWA champion always got something on my sleeve. Here, what? The bullet. I just can't find that shotgun. But anyway, here's the EWA title. I needed something to shine it up, but we'll find out later. I'm waiting for the score. Hopefully the boys will be here soon. Oh, here comes one of them now. Hi, Yellow. What do you got for me here? Let's see. Oh, my God. Oh, licorice on lemon. Good job. Whole big. Look at this, Red. It's good to be me. Good job, Blue. Orange. Hey, you told that dude down there, he ever talks to me like that on the phone again, I'll break his fucking fingers.
I think the fact that we're just talking about, like, yeah, the crayons. Like, who's watching this right now? Everybody out there in podcast universe, like they're just the crayons. What the fuck are they talking about? Crayons were wrestling characters. Crayons were wrestling characters.
Do you know who I am?
We here backstage with the Golden Nugget. Hey, Nugget, you got some action.
Sure. It looks like I hold all the cards. We're the pack, and I'm the leader. I'm the big crayon in the box, eh? And let me tell you something, Dusty. This isn't the last you've seen of us, and this isn't the least you've seen of us. We are going to reign supreme over the EWA for a long, long time. Isn't that right, boys?
And we
I show everybody that.
We had crayons in the first place. We just had costumes.
Yeah. And then there was another element to having the entranceway set up, the music set up, the tower set up. Our costumes just like got a lot better. It was just presented better, and the wrestling was better, and we were so used to it. I think aside from Chris and my final matches with the Zeitgeist, I've had really solid matches with my brother, but matches, me and Brian, and I think it's because we're so used to each other and we know each other so well. How he reacts to me in the ring makes me feel a certain way where, like, I can kind of be the powerhouse where I'm usually the smaller guy, and he's kind of like the smaller guy, but he's actually taller than me. It's just that he's lighter than me. In the Claudio Cacciatore versus Chaos match where Claudio drops the belt, there's a ton of shit that Brian does where Chaos is just like cracking up under the mask.
Has been beaten out. My gun feel. Yes, I did really good. We're extreme here. Gum gets swallowed.
Because it's like, oh, that's like a Brian fucking thing to do that just looks good. He's loose with his body. He's loose with his body in a way where it just like looks good. When he's doing that kick and then the kendo stick and then the kick and the kendo stick and he's cursing at you and mocking you while he's doing it. Chris,
I was saying that the last time we were talking about it, like outside of the pumpkin match. That's my favorite match too.
Yeah.
Where like two lunatics just fucking met.
Right.
Really sussed each other out and beat the shit out of each other.
Yep. And really the passing of the belt to Chaos was kind of like we gave everyone that needed a title run that didn't get one in the past a run now. So now we can kind of move on. And I think from Chaos, it goes to the French Wonder. From the French Wonder, it goes to the Nugget.
I lobbied hard for the Nugget. I lobbied very hard for the Nugget to be the champion behind the scenes.
The Nugget as champion only, I still say, only worked with the heel turn. And the crayons. I mean, it just made it work. And then Brian shoots this video where the Golden Nugget hits the French Wonder in the balls in black and white in slow motion.
In a world.
Yeah. And that feud becomes a thing. I think the storyline where Claudio goes crazy at that point was solid. I regret, it sucks that Brian had to move away. We really should have made more of an effort before he left to get some of that stuff filmed. But I think the storyline where he starts to lose it. I mean, we had it.
I'm done beating myself up. Beating him is just another way of beating the horrors that are in my fucking head. I gotta stop. letting people like that fuck with me. Finally is now. Finally is tonight in this ring against fucking Greg Dust. I'm gonna fucking end it. I'm gonna end it instead of ending it, if you know what I mean.
He had broken away from this Dunad squad and started really losing his mind. We had the curse meter going, and he was just obsessed with finally getting his hands on Greg Dust and just ending Greg Dust. And then that was kind of going to be like the end of like Greg Dust's career. And that's how we were going to retire him. That whole thing, if we could have just stopped, at one point and said, look, Brian's going to leave in a couple months. Stop filming the other stuff and we'll just do this. And we'll do it in sequence and we'll just add it later. That would have been much better. I regret not thinking of it. We would have gotten their matches in before he left. Because it would have been a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. Well, hey, we'll just find some time to get down to Savannah. We'll find a local high school, and we'll just have Joe rip Brian into a classroom during a class and start it up right there.
It'll be 1999 all over again. We'll just start brawling. We'll just start brawling in the parking lot and
There's
start hitting each
there's
other
a
with shit.
lot of really great alleyways in Savannah.
Hell yeah.
And I think if there's
Joe made a really good comment about like Brian's kind of wrestling style before, about how like he was just like kind of so fluid, and then like also it's like I was trying to think of like it's like fucking if like Bruce Lee and Andrew Dice Clay melded into one person and became a pro wrestler. That's what it was like. Because bro just was like water. Like everything just went right with the next motion, and then the same with the insults. Like they just came fucking right out, and it all worked as great as it could have been.
And ironically, I know with my arm injury, it may not be in the cards, but Brian and Chris are the two people that I don't have single matches with in my last title run where I defended. So I'm hoping one day I can do it.
Maybe we can do a remote match.
We can do remote. Yeah.
Maybe we can do a remote match right now, brother.
Hey.
But I'm happy. I was really happy with.
Hey, we made that work with the COVID shit. You know,
we did.
Hamill sends a video throwing a punch. Greg takes the video taking the hit.
And then I again want to point out, we're doing this. I want to say it again. I was definitely hit a few points where I was like, are we going to make it? Or are we going to do this? Donnelly just really loves it. He really fucking loves it. There were times where he was more dedicated than I was. And COVID pushed us back 2 or 3 years.
Oh, majorly. We were
on season 9 for 3 years trying to finish season 9, which, by the way, season 9, if you watch it back, because remember, I have every episode on a DVD with a case and a cover labeled. If you watch season 9 is amazing. There's so many ideas. We do a Bizarro World for 2 episodes or 3 episodes.
Fucking amazing.
Everyone's flipped around, and you're the American Wonder, and I'm the Red Ruby, and all this shit. Like, there's a lot of stuff.
Mike paints a mustache on me, and I put an American flag on my head. It's great.
And I'm Joey Dust. I get to be Joey Dust.
Well, and season 9, I guess you have 99.5 or something like that still, right, to do. But we hit 100. The 100 mark, the 3-digit mark got hit. And the EWA has made history. And I'm going to keep saying it because let's just assume that it's true. The longest running backyard outfit in the world of all time, ever and forever.
I'm happy the 100th episode was Condiment Wars in New York City.
Not bad.
What I still do not accept is I want the last pay-per-view to have everyone in it.
Yeah.
I don't mind the idea of Pinto Palooza being a collection of the EWA's greatest matches that it has to offer.
Same here, brother. Same here. And this has been fun to kind of recap how this whole thing came to be. And I do want to just end this on some words, some more words from our lovely Brian Hamill there from EWA the movie, because I am gonna get this up eventually. But this was like the perfect like intro to what I think is what makes this thing special that we do. And I'm just gonna play this here.
Not a lot of people get to say they punched their friend with a can of beer in the face.
Oh my God! Ladies and gentlemen!
Laughed hysterically about it afterwards. And it's on camera. And it's on YouTube for other people to enjoy.
This has been a beautiful night!
Should they care anything about it.
I love doing it with you guys, sexually and otherwise.
I love doing it with you, Brian.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. And that is how that movie starts, just so you know. I think that'll stay, because I love that. I love that opening, because that just says it all, man. That says it all.
Yeah.
I really, and you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I really hope that you guys had, as much fun as I did. When we reopened, I really just wanted everyone to have fun, everyone to get to like have a title run, to enjoy it, to shine, to just enjoy themselves. And even when new people came, I wanted to make sure, okay, you're up here, here's a belt. What do you want to do? I just wanted to make
What are we
everyone
doing? What are we doing?
So I mean it's part of who we are. There would be no EWA if it wasn't for everyone's involvement over the years. Every single person that came and was a part of it, even if they just stopped in and did a few matches, it was a collaborative effort on everybody's end. For the people that were there from the beginning to the end, it was really part of who they were. And for the people that came after, it probably changed who they were. And there would never be a Hollywood Pinto without everyone that backed me. So I appreciate all my friends and everything that we've gone through and put together and made together. And look at what we accomplished. I mean, Condiment Wars was more or less my dream, although I hurt my arm. I mean, that's not a shadow on it. It kind of gave me some glory in my mind. I got hurt and I still finished the match, and it was in front of all those people, and that's all I ever wanted. And getting back to the beginning, because Brian, you asked the origins of the EWA. All it really was a bunch of people that wanted to do the wrestling thing without having to be shackled by teams with dickheads on it and bullshit and rules and all the crap you have to deal with when you're officially like affiliated with something. We did what we did because we loved it, and it was on our terms, and we did it long enough to be able to say we may never have been professional wrestlers, but like, what makes you a professional wrestler? We kind of did it. But we did it in our way and on our terms, and still had a life and still did our own thing. And I would say that's like the core of it.
And we only did this. We exclusively did this to entertain ourselves.
Yeah.
Never at any point did I give a shit. No offense to anybody watching this. I never really cared how many views we got on YouTube or what the comments were saying. If I got up from a spot and I looked over at the boys and they were smiling, that made me happy.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about during the Pumpkinhead match.
Yeah.
When I pull out the beer, that's like my happiest moment.
Yeah.
Because you guys were there, you didn't know what was going to happen. Your reaction is better than anything.
That's the fucking bottom line. There could be zero other people on the planet that know what is going on, and I would have still did it exactly the same.
Absolutely. All right, listen, let me go, guys.
All right.
All right, Joe. I love you, Joe.
Fellas.
I love you,
Thank
fellas.
you.
I will talk to you again.
All right.
Goodbye.
Peace.
That was fun.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for hopping on and staying on late.
Did you guys get into like the creation of Greg Dust, like when we wrapped the paper towels around his face?
Oh yeah,
We dedicated 2 episodes to it.
That was just amazing.
We dedicated 2 entire episodes to it because, to be honest, like I don't think I fully appreciated all of that because I didn't like go back and like watch this shit when I started with you guys, and then like listening, I was like, wait, what happened? And wait, what did James say? And like, it's fucking fantastic.
We killed the character too. We killed the White Ranger.
Right.
You knew about that, right?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah. And then like
if it's the middle of summer, I'll get some White Claws. I'll drink like 30 White Claws and have that certain that like certain level of buzz when you get like it happens with like the lighter beers too, when like day drinking when it's really hot and you're just sweating and pissing everything out, and it's just like you're like capped on how like drunk / buzzed you can get. Right. And you almost feel like you're immortal at this point. Like I could drink 1 million of these. I'm not going to get more drunk than this.
This is nothing. Yeah, it's the dehydration talking.
Yeah, exactly. You're dehydrating yourself, and then at some point, at like depending on when you started, somewhere between like midnight and 2 in the morning, you're just like, this is the worst headache I've ever had in my life. You just at the sink filling up cups of water and chugging them.
I did that last night.